Boom.
Particular.
Mushroom.
It's getting out, y'all!
RTS, or real-time strategy, is a concept I really like. The player requires both a plan and the mechanical skill to execute that plan. Add that all plans have counter-plans, and players are constantly planning to outplan each other. Quick thinking awards players with little advantages over their opponent, stacking up until the ultimatum unleashes, the final gambit to end the game. It's all quite exciting and mysterious. Plus, sometimes I just like watching the units duke it out. Go, men, go! Go, men, go! There exists, though, one bunkered entry barrier that scoffs at my ineptitude. APM, or actions per minute. Say you've got the 12 musketeers. You want to move them over here, no problem. Double-click to select all of them and right-click at the spot. But now let's say we want to split them off into groups of 3. How do we do that? Well, we can shift-click each unit individually, or we can bring out the cookie cutter box. The speed you can perform these actions is analogous to your APM. And that doesn't sound too bad, you say. But just wait until you're in a big fight, with not only musketeers, but horses and swords and cannons. Oh, but don't forget there's another battle halfway across the map. Oh, and your naval units got into a battle too. Are you seeing the problem here? At some level of play, it becomes less about strategy and more about flinging your fingers around the keyboard like a master pianist. Props to the people who play these games, but for me, RTS faded out of relevance. That stood until the creators of Monaco announced their next game, Tooth and Tail. Follow o maluvioin cheses bal texoilau Vyeshal, and welcome to my Tooth and Tail review. Hey, so this is what we're covering in this review. If that's too much for you, then see ya, but I don't think it's too much. You should stick around. For most RTSs, you start at a home base, where you accrue resources and build up an army. Your goal with that army is to destroy your opponent's bases. The same holds true for Tooth and Tail. You start off at a home base called a grist mill. The farms around your mill generate food, the currency used to purchase defenses and warrens. The warrens produce units, and there it is, an army. Tooth and Tail differentiates itself from the RTS crowd, though, with this girl. She's the commander. And that's who you play as. That's right. You're not some unseen puppet master moving your set pieces around. You've got to lead your army to victory. You want this old mill? You take it. You want this campfire for your campfire song? You start the kindling. You want to engage the enemy? You have to charge into enemy territory. You have to take enemy fire. And you have to rally your army to the exact point you want them to go. This changes everything. You can still micromanage your army, but the game only moves as fast as the commanders. APM is not a barrier to entry, and you can play this game competitively with a controller. That's wild. I can only think of one other RTS that does this well. They have a surprising amount of similarities. Anyway, now that you know why this game is such a revolution, let's talk about the story, which is in fact a revolution. The story basis, honestly, is a bit strange. Certain animals have gained human cognitive processes, and they decide they're not eating fruits and vegetables anymore. They're only eating meat. So they munch on some pigs, but there's not enough pigs to go around. So they start eating each other. This makes no sense. Not only because cannibalism is flat out wrong, but also because it's super inefficient. Let's take a normal rat denizen and call him Skippy. Let's say Skippy eats his weight in meat every 2 months, and he's been alive for 5 years. That means Skippy has eaten his weight in meat 30 times. Food rations are low again, and so they decide to eat poor Skippy. But perhaps, maybe, just maybe, instead of eating Skippy, you should just eat the meat you gave your meat. If you don't have enough pigs to eat, you don't have enough meat. Eat your veggies. But take that plot hole with a grain of wheat, and the rest of the story works pretty well. Each of the 4 factions fights in a war for food, trying to seize control with their own idea of who becomes the meat. The long coats, who go by strong over the weak. The common folk, who go by mob rule. The KSR, who go by law dictates. And the civilized, who go by, well, theirs is kind of difficult to describe in a phrase, so let's just go with rigged death lottery. You go through each faction as they try and gain superiority, and well, they all fail one way or another. The factions have obvious similarities to real-world government types, and perhaps the story is a commentary on them. No one faction is right. I came into the story thinking I would side with one faction over the others, but as I progressed, every single commander ended up relatable. I liked all of them. Bellified, Hopper, Quartermaster, and Archimedes. There's a part where Quartermaster is taken aback by how quickly this boar sells out his faction. Her motto is peace over morality, by the way. When told, "You will slaughter them," even the sly, cunning Archimedes reels in disgust. They needed these moments. It shows they have good intentions, that they're personable. However, when the ideals were imposed on the world, the meat spoiled. Yeah, it's pretty dark for what I'm used to. It got to the point where I thought, do I like this game? Is this a game I like? And the thing is, I like the missions themselves. Unique rules and maps force you into different tactics, and the murky storyline is not so much in your face during the gameplay. But the other problem is it's pretty short. There are heroic objectives for each mission that take significantly more time and effort to achieve, but not everyone will want to go for these. Now, the campaign may take you a while, but that'd be because certain missions are devious when learning the game. Once you learn your way around multiplayer, many missions become trivial. That's what story mode is really best at, getting you ready for multiplayer. Story mode will familiarize you with the controls, and each achievement grants you a swag flag. Head over to the customization tab and show off your achievements with a flag symbol of your choice. Of course, if your opponent sports a symbol you've never seen before, wow, that's a cool skull, I wonder what achievement that is, I'm sure it's something difficult. So it's more about fashion and style than anything else. And in similar fashion, the game easily mods, so you can make Bellified orange, or in my case, put a mushroom on your flag. It's really neat to see the flag convulsing in the wind, and that's something the game does unequivocally well. The senses. I have a soft spot for pixel art, but even the cynical should find details they like. I mean, just look at it. They didn't need to do water reflections. The animations are smooth. Particle effects are everywhere. Bullet shells, campfires, even churning dirt. My favorite particle comes from the birch trees. Look at these cute little falling leaves. They float down with the in-game wind too. That's totally unnecessary, but a nice touch. The little things add up over time. The game also uses alpha values in a surprising manner. Almost all the effects and particles are somewhat transparent, so even in large skirmishes, these effects don't overload the screen. We can still see what's going on. On top of that, it adds to a pixel art game a sense of realism, while still being clean, light, and fun. It's weird. The art style facilitates the dark undertones the story goes for, but it's also bouncy and fun. I think this is why the pixel art and also the painted UI work so well. If the game was any more realistic, it'd be too much. Now it's not perfect. I could use some more details on the army units, and some particle effects are a little much, but that kind of feels hypercritical. I mean, the ferret's lobbing an explosive at your face. Makes sense that there's a big dust cloud. Now let's talk about the sounds. The explosions are particularly exciting, and everything else is solid. It has the standard feedback loop you expect from video games. Each unit has a different sound for their weapon, and this is important for gameplay. Whenever you hear, you know, even if the unit is in the fog of war, that that's a sniper fox, and you need to react accordingly. However, what really sells the sounds home for me is Vyeshal. Remember that weird phrase I said at the beginning of the video? Well, that's hello everyone, this is particular mushroom in Vyeshal, the in-game language of Tooth and Tail. Every unit in the game speaks their voice lines in Vyeshal. This adds a ton of personality to both the units and the game. Like, the mole shouts, Leroy Jenkins! You're just playing the game and they randomly say things while moving or attacking. And the commanders are blabbermouths too. Of course, they are leading the army, but even they throw some shade to the opposition. Yeah, you tell them, Hopper. I'll throw some links into the description for those curious about Vyeshal. But now let's move on to the music. So each commander in the game actually plays exactly the same. They just have differences in theming. The biggest change, I'd say, is in the music. Each commander has a different style of music with different instruments, and then we have the title screen music. That's it. This game essentially has 5 tracks. That's it. Technically there's more. Say Old Man Archimedes loses a mill. The music turns more panicked and hushed. The tracks have lulls and highs depending on how the battle is going. There's also remixes and variations like in the deck selection screen. However, you're basically listening to the same tracks over and over and over again. That's a big red flag. And yet, somehow, I am not tired of a single one. They are superbly crafted. I played the game for only a week and got the most ridiculous earworm. I'm serious, this melody was stuck in my head for an entire month. And besides the soundtrack just being good, it fits and perhaps even defines the themes for each faction. It helps put you in the shoes. Snap. They don't wear shoes. Whatever. Moreover, the tone is set right as you pop into the main menu. And perhaps we should now talk about the meat of this game, multiplayer. There are 3 main modes of multiplayer: offline, unranked, and ranked. That's not a whole lot, but there are 3 main reasons it works well: experience, community, Uncle Butters. Experience, of course, is the prime rib, so let's run through the modes. The CPU is a bit of a one-trick no matter what difficulty you choose. But other than that, offline is very feature complete. What does that mean? Well, you have all kinds of control over the map generation, like using a seed. Unfortunately, Waluigi is not a good map seed. You can play all the modes, 2v2, 4-player free-for-all, 3v1 if you're crazy. You can spectate with graphs and zooms, and even just watch the computers brawl out. The game supports 4-player local split screen, and you can even enable cheats to perform debug commands, like granting 5,000 food or making units invulnerable, perfect for testing strategies. Unranked is about the same, except no cheats because we're playing with others online. When you're ready to get serious, it's time for ranked. Climb the ladder of points as the game matches you up in 1v1s. Actually, not necessarily serious. This is the best place to hop into a game with another person, so don't be afraid to try out new strategies, even at the cost of your points. Once everything's set up and we pick our commanders in any mode, it's time to select your deck. Yup, deck. There are 20 units in the game, and of those 20, you can only take 6 into battle. That might not seem like a lot of units, but already that's over 38,000. Wait, what? 38,760 combinations? Well, some of those decks are trash, but still, that's a lot. So with those 20 units, there are 4 rows. The first row is the rabble, as Bellified calls them. They are the tier 1 units. They build fast and are the building blocks of most armies. Next row is the tier 2. These units pack a punch, with better stats but longer build times. Then we have the tier 3. These are the big bad raid bosses. These buff units take a long time to build and are quite specialized, dictating your strategy when they come into play. Finally, we have the defenses. These structures offer more value than standard tier units at the trade-off of remaining stuck in the spot you build them. A normal deck consists of 2 tier 1, 2 tier 2, 1 tier 3, and 1 defense. However, you're free to try anything, although you pretty much always take lizards and/or squirrels. The deck I'm running at the moment is squirrels, moles for cheese strats and final gambits, chameleons for tankiness, falcons for raw DPS, fox for late game poking, and bullet hive for quick defense. As for the map, at least in ranked, it's randomized. Not just the biome, everything. Mills, campfires, trees, all of it. Yeah, there are downsides to this. Sometimes the map generation completely ruins your day, or you just can't utilize the deck the way you intended. But overall, this is a great decision. It keeps the game consistently fresh, prevents any one strat from being the best, and teaches you an important lesson about the game. It's all about being reactionary. It's definitely good to come into a match with a strategy in mind, but keep it a guideline over anything else. One of the design goals with Tooth and Tail is to think on your feet, and plan your strategy as you scout the map. Well, not only the map, but your opponent. Your strategy is only so good as it beats your opponent, and you have to react according to how they play. So for example, while your tier 3 is building, you're down 360 food. That's a window of opportunity where your opponent can attack and beat you. Conversely, if you see your opponent building a tier 3, you have to decide whether you'll attack, or maybe get a tier 3 of your own. You need to have a response ready for that tier 3, or you're going to lose. It's also fun when you can metagame your opponent. Say start digging up a tier 3, she sees it and burrows back home, and then you sell the warren and pop down 500 lizards. Then you rush in on them. Lizard raid party, I hope you've got an orange cake! Matches can last like 15 minutes, but generally one bad mistake snowballs a victory for the other guy. And so, especially in ranked, they usually last a swift 6 minutes. So you can learn a lot in 1 hour of playtime. And this is where the game begins to shine like a ribeye glaze. The game has micromanagement of units. You usually need to babysit your tier 3s in particular, and the game rewards you for doing so. However, you can only micromanage so much. When you call your squirrels over, you call all of your squirrels over. There's more emphasis on strategy, and if you can make a move that completely catches your opponent off guard, it doesn't matter how well they micro. That's it, you've won the game. When I first started playing, everyone was better than me. Even now, many players are better than me. but I don't care who I'm versing. If I have a strategy that my opponent can't respond to in time, I can win. Because the game is quick and reactionary, you can always say, I have a chance. That's something no other competitive game has ever been able to offer me. Even if you get to the point where you think someone is using some impossible to beat OP deck, you can switch to that same deck and try and beat them with their own medicine. Now that's exciting. I've done it a few times, but even I must admit it is frustrating to verse people way better than you, and sometimes they're the only players online. As an indie game, the Tooth and Tail user base is pretty small. Sometimes no one will be online, or you'll have to wait a few minutes before someone shows up. Here's where the community kicks in. It's tough when no one is queuing up sometimes, but the trade-off is, bam, Pocket Watch Discord. Everyone who's anyone in this game will most likely hang out in this Discord. Not only can you beat the best players, but you can learn about game balance straight from their text boxes. This is a good place to discuss anything Tooth and Tail, but also a great way to get actual human beings in your unranked lobby. As with any public Discord, you're bound to run into some oddballs, but let me just say that the developers get a big thumbs up from me. The crew does a great job interacting with the community and dealing with cries about flavor of the month OP strategy. Now, the top-notch players may give you the cold shoulder, but when it comes to actual tournaments and events, everyone is pretty supportive of new players. I recommend the Pocket Watch Discord as an important piece of the full Tooth and Tail experience. Now, there's one more in-game nitpick I want to point out. The ranked board by default populates with all the players who finished a game within the last hour. That's cool when you got people calling themselves Lasagna Man, Spaghetti Jr., and Ravioli Boy, but if someone has the nerve to name themselves I Hate Mushrooms, you're stuck looking at that stupid name every time you search for a ranked game. But whatever, I'm a grown adult, I can handle this. Thankfully, the game really gets that 1v1 right. No all chat, no you'll never get good, Grandma. Just you and your opponent. May the better strategy win. At the end of the day, that is what this game is going for. For better or worse, the game is all about that competitive multiplayer experience. That mole backdoor, that lizard base race, that clutch one hero squirrel only carries the satisfaction and excitement it does because you know the other players are putting their best foot forward to win the war for meat. But there's one slice of the shepherd's pie left. There's a one unit that ties the game together and really puts the meat on the table. Like seriously, he's a cook. One of his lines in game is, "Kiss the chef."
Cast your here!
That's right, it's Uncle Butters. Dem out bien, Uncle Butters. Show him who the real raid boss is. Burn that mill down. He's a boar with a flamethrower. What else do I need to say? Absolutely nothing. Just roll the montage. Is it obvious he's my favorite unit? With that all said, there's only one thing left to discuss, and that's the map editor. The game has an editor, but it's in alpha, it crashes a lot, and there's no way to play your custom maps in-game. I cannot stress how pensive I am about the day I can finally play custom maps in an online lobby. After playing multiplayer, I realized just how much potential the story mode does not tap into. Custom maps can reach into that reserve. It would open a can of worms, and not like bad worms. We're talking disco 80s worms that want to party all night long, all night. I mean, just like Pocket Watch, it needs to happen. However, just recently, some hardworking community members have modded the game to get the editor working and get these maps playable. It's as mind-exploding as I thought it would be. Thanks, guys. But until these maps are easily accessible via a menu in the official EXE, there won't be many people to play these maps with. I am waiting. Before we wrap up, I want to seriously thank all my subscribers who got through this video. I really appreciate you sticking around to hear about this unique game. It's not the biggest game ever, and the themes are a bit dark, even if it is all satire. But on the competitive side of things, Tooth and Tail cuts out all the fat and gives you a premium slice of meat. Skill is rewarded, but strategy is most important. I can relax, put my feet up, listen to that great music, and play a competitive RTS game about cute pixel art animals with a controller. Quick to learn and consistently evolving, Tooth and Tail is easily one of the best online multiplayer experiences I have ever played. If you're not into an admittedly niche, distilled multiplayer RTS, I'm not sure the game is worth your $20. But if you are into that, I'd say this game is worth it, and 3 times over. I give Tooth and Tail a well-deserved 4 particular mushrooms. And perhaps I will see you on the battlefield. Hey guys, I hope you liked this review. As usual, if there's anything you thought I could do better or something I totally missed, let me know. Also, here's an announcement. Particular Discord is now publicly available. Right now we're just chilling, but you can expect tournaments and other events with prizes in the future. We've got a particular bot in beta, and I'll be there to talk, so come and say hi. This is like soft launch part 2. I'm gonna put together a short video for the Discord, and once we get situated, that first event will be coming up. Alright, back to work for me. Another day, another nickel. See ya.